Now we are going to look at the three methods of flotation that is available under sources of long-term finance. So the first one is initial public offer. Now what does it mean? Now this is for a company who is going to issue its shares to the public at first. Now generally if the share issue is large and if you want to reach a wider community, you will issue the using of initial public offering. And there could be subsequent issues which of a share issue of the size of a company, which could be again at either go as public offering or right issues or as placings. Now what is a placing? Now plating is an arrangement whereby the shares are not all offered to the public, but instead you will find a market maker. Generally we call them stockbrokers or investment bankers. So they will make an arrangement for the issue of the shares to be bought by a small number of investors. So generally these will be invested by institutional investors like pension funds and insurance companies. So here what happens is again you are going for the public money but through different mechanism. Here you are going for a limited investors, but actually the access is through the public money because those are the institutional investors only come and do placements with your company. And then also there is a possibility for you to carry out an introduction. Now when you do an introduction, it is not, the shares are not made available to the market to buy, but you obtain a stock market quotation. So assuming that shares are largely being held and a market is seen to exist. So if you want your company is having large number of shareholders and still you want to refrain from being listed in the stock market, but you need to get a valuation of your stocks. So this is what the introduction is. So generally why you require an introduction is when the company wants to ensure the marketability of its shares are existence, and also to obtain the share valuation for inheritance tax purpose. So these are the reasons why you would do an introduction. And remember, when you do introduction, it is easier for you to raise additional capital in the future because you know there is a market value associated with your share. So these are the three methods that is available. Now, what are the costs of share issues on a stock market in common? Now, one thing is underwriting costs. So, when you say underwriting costs, because an underwriter, as I told you earlier lesson, underwriter will require a commission to be paid on the amount that you are going to subscribe. And then we also be charged with a stock market listing fee, which is the initial charge for the new securities. And the issuing house will also charge, the solicitors, auditors, and public relation consultants will be charged. So you will have to bear charges for printing and distributing the prospectus and advertising in newspapers to ensure that all the shares are being subscribed to. So remember, when you issue a share, it involves certain amount of cost. Now, when you look at a share issuance, it is also important for us to establish how you price the share as well. Because when you look at the pricing of the share, it is always important for you to set the price at the right place. Because one is, if you underprice your share, the shares may get oversubscribed and your related capital that you could have raised will get limited. Whereas if you oversubscribe it or overpriced it, what will happen is your shares may get undersubscribed and your underwriting fees at such instance will be higher. So what are the conditions that will really prevail on? Now, one thing you will need to look at is the current market conditions. Now, in a scenario where the drop down in stock market prices or where the share prices are coming down in the stock market, it is not the best time for a company to go and do its public offering because your current market conditions are not good. And then, what are the future trading prospects associated with that share? Now, for example, in 2014, you know, the the gold price in the world market was coming down. So if a company who was trading in gold is willing to invest or is looking to invest or looking for or seeking for a stock market listing, the scenario was that market for gold was not good. So the future trading prospects of the entity will not be good. So that is not the right time to go for a share issue. And then what is the immediate premium you require? Now, when you look at the share price, you will need to decide. Now, your share capital will be issued in terms of $1 share. So, you will issue a $1 share at a price of $2. So, you need to see this whether the share premium of additional $1 that you pay is correct, because there could be a time where your share premium may be too high, which means your price will be too high. And you also need to evaluate what are the price of shares in similar quoted companies. So there may be companies which may be in the same industry. So you need to look at what prices are their shares being traded at, and also you will have to look into how these companies have performed over the past few years. And then we are going to look at sources of long-term debt finance. Now, the first of all, we should know what are the reasons for seeking debt finance. Now, remember always, not all the time the current shareholders will be willing to contribute additional capital. So, because now sometimes what happens is, although the company's current shareholders cannot give infuse additional capital, at times the existing shareholders will also not be willing to allow new outsiders to come uh, into the ownership. So what will happen is, in this kind of scenario, you will have to borrow money. So that is why the debt finance capital will require. And remember, in theory, the choosing for debt finance may include a lower cost because and easier availability. Because unlike shareholders, the debt holders will assume a lesser risk. So which means they will have rather a lower cost of finance. And remember also, the interest payments that you make are tax deductible, whereas the dividend payments for shareholders are not tax deductible. So that will also provide a tax relief on the interest payments on the company, and it will save some money for the company. Now, what are the factors that would influence the choice of debt finance? Now, one thing is the availability. So, how much is available for you to borrow? And then, what is the credit rating of your company? So, if you are a public listed company or a larger company, generally you will have a higher credit rating. And then, the amount. How much can you borrow? And what is the requirement of your borrow? And what is the term that you are going to borrow the money for? And then whether it's a fixed rate loan or a floating rate loan. So because generally, if you it depends on the interest rate scenarios and the likeliness of how the business would like to accept. So if a company wants to have it at fixed rate, then they will be fine, and if they are want to having it at a floating rate, then they will also be fine. And then you also need to have security and covenants. So what are the securities that you will need to pledge, and what conditions that you will have to meet in order to add during the tenure of the loan. So these are the factors that would influence the choice of a debt finance. Now, what are the types of debt finance we have? The first type is a term loan. Now, term loan is simply a loan for a fixed amount for a specified period. Now, generally what you do is you go to a bank and take this kind of a loan. Now, remember that specialty of a long-term loan or a term loan is that it will have a specific purpose. So it may be either to purchase a particular asset or to enhance your machineries, or to renovate your factory premises, kind of things like that. Now, generally what happens is your loan will be granted you in full at the beginning, and at a specified time periods you will be expected to make repayments in terms of installments. So generally what you do is your interest and capital repayments are being predetermined and agreed upon, and then only the term loan will be offered to you. Now remember, there is a tax relief on loan interest. Now, what is the reason? Now, when you issue a bond, when you issue new set of bonds are basically another form of borrowing what a company can carry. So when you rather than issuing new set of preference shares, now remember what is the difference of preference shares and a bond. Now preference share will carry an ownership, so which means the dividend will be paid, it will have to be paid. Now instead in a bond what will happen is interest has to be paid. So the moment that you pay an interest, what will happen, you will be entitled to claim the tax relief. And now, why do you want to issue bonds? One thing is that it would avoid the dilution of shareholdings and increase gearing. So, so what will happen is when the companies do borrow, it will, although it will increase gearing, it will increase your earnings per share by benefiting from tax relief on interest payment. So that is also an important factor for us to consider. Now, what types of bonds that we see in the market? Now, one type of a bond is a deep discount bond. Now, deep discount bond is a bond that is offered at a large discount on the face value of the debt, so that a significant proportion of the return to the investor comes by way of a capital gain on redemption rather than through interest payment. Now, what you will look at is in a deep discount bond. Now, let us assume the face value of the deep discount bond is generally $100, and you will see a coupon of say 4%. Now the price that this face value instrument of $100 will be issued, you will see that it is issued at a price of $70 in the market. So say the bond has a maturity of 2 years, or let's say 5 years. So if the bond has a 5-year maturity, so during this 5-year period, you will receive 4% on 4% on $100 every year, which is $4 every year. Plus, at the maturity, you are getting this $100. But what was your investment? You were invested only $70. Now, these deep discount bonds are generally issued by companies with a lower standing, because in order to attract more investors only, they would issue deep discount bonds. And then we also have a bond called zero coupon bond. Now what a zero coupon bond does is the bond does not pay any interest at all, so but it is offered at a lower price. So what will happen is your investors return will be in form of whatever the capital appreciation that he gains at the end of the period. Then we also have convertible securities. Now, what is convertible security means? Now, a convertible security or a convertible debt is that a liability that will give the holder the right to convert into another instrument, normally an ordinary share, at a predetermined price, rate, and time. So, what is that? So, your conversion value is equal to conversion ratio into market price per ordinary share, and conversion premium is equal to current market value minus current conversion value. So let us look at this how the convertible securities would work in the part 3 of this lesson.